Pews versus chairs. What about your church? Do you have long benches where everybody sits together, or do you kind of feel like an individual in that row? Wonder what that says about our heart posture. Does it say anything?
Welcome to the Dawn and Steve Plus podcast, fueled by Raphael's Roastery and supported by you. Connect to us on socials or dawnandsteveplus.com.
When you were a kid, do you remember, did you have to sit in pews? Were there chairs? What was that like?
Yes, no, yes.
Okay.
No.
So you jumped around different churches at different times in life.
No, well, not exactly. So the very
Okay.
first church that we were part of when my parents were still married, Pews.
Okay.
Then we went to a church that started and was in a storefront, chairs.
Sure.
Then they built a church building, Pews.
Back to pews.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. The church I grew up in, it was wooden pews with a thin bluish cloth seat. And, you know, that was just everybody sat in those pews all the
Yes.
time. And I don't know. When I think of going to church, I still can picture that church that I grew up in.
Mhm.
And all these memories of cramming as many people as you possibly can in a pew was very much a reality in my life for a long time.
What does that memory do for you, though, as you think about that? Is it just kind of one of those, oh, yeah, we sat in pews? Or is there something relational that you remember about having to cram as many people as you can?
Because that was only during the season of like junior high, high school,
Uh-huh.
that was very much relational,
Sure.
right? Outside of that, you know, when I was younger, before you could sit with your friends and you had to sit with mom and dad, pew, chair, I don't care. I don't know that it mattered, except that when you were a little enough kid, you could get away with laying down in a pew.
Yep.
Kind of, and almost, you know, stretch out a little bit. Outside of that, yeah, I could have cared less if it was pew or chair. But when you hit that kind of junior high, high school age, I mean, you would, because I remember
I
walking
can
into
see you
church
now.
and seeing
Yes.
it late, right?
Mhm.
And it's all these families scattered all throughout the sanctuary. And then you get up near the front left-hand side where the youth group always sat, and it was density.
Oh,
It was
sure.
all the kids tightly packed, and
Mhm.
it was very much relational. Lots of whispering, probably too much poking each other, playing little games, you know, trying not to be too disruptive of the service, but I'm sure we were.
I'm sure. I can remember that too. Now, this was the point of time when I was junior high and high school where we had chairs, and they just got chairs from wherever they could.
Okay.
The church did, because it was a new church. It was a small church. I seem to recall my grandparents, that, you know, they were part of that season. I seem to recall them finding chairs somewhere, and we kind of sat up, like toward the back, it was just the metal folding chairs.
Yep.
So you had to get there early to get more of
To
the
get some of
dining
the
room
nicer
padded.
chairs?
Yeah. But I do remember growing up with a church with pews, whether I'd go back before they moved from Ohio and went to those, or the church that we were part of when we lived in Michigan. And that was the wooden pews, almost straight up, you know, the padding about 2 inches thick.
Yep.
And I had both of my first two kids, I was pregnant on those pews. And I recall very much that hard back. But there is something that really formulates relationships when you have to learn to say, excuse me, pardon me, while you're trying to get
You're
into
climbing
the
over
empty.
people?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
empty. Or I remember when we first got to the church in Michigan, and we sat in the back because we were visiting, and somebody came in and stood next to me and looked down and was like,
Oh, were you in their seat?
I was
You were
in
their
their pew.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. People can still do that with chairs, but obviously there are habits, and we are creatures of habit. If we are nothing, we human beings. But there was something really relational about having to sit in a pew.
There is, I think, to a certain degree. And because the church I grew up in was pews, then the church I attended for a long time was not.
Right?
And I'm back to attending a church where there are pews again.
Mm-hmm.
And as an adult, I don't feel like it's quite as differentiating as when I was younger.
But which is more differential, the pews or the individual seats?
You know, the pews, they're fine. It's the climbing over people that is maybe the thing now, because if you get enough chairs and you put them close enough together,
Yeah.
you can almost simulate kind of the pew experience.
You kind of can, but I do think that chairs, and there's an article of the Gospel Coalition, which has kind of got us all
Yeah.
thinking through this, because he's arguing that he kind of misses the days of pews, because a lot of churches have gone to individual chairs. My church has individual chairs. And his argument is, it kind of makes it more, it may send the message that it's an individual worship experience. And I think he's got a point, because though he's not trying to be legalistic about it, and he says that beautifully in the article, but he said, you come in and you're picking your seat, and if you don't like that one, then you can pick a different one. And it's not that easy if you have pews.
How come?
Because there's usually, depending on the church, there's usually only so many openings. Like my church that I grew up in, it's very small congregation. So there's plenty of pew space. Matter of fact, you can probably have your own pew if you want it. But that's not always the case. You usually have more people. And so if you're having to you can't just go and pick this individual chair, sit in the middle of that row, and not feel like you've got your own space. Like the pew is different. There's something about that you feel that you're kind of connected with the people in that.
Maybe a little bit, yeah. And do you know where I realize that the most is when the person at the other end of the pew is one of those their legs jump up and down constantly.
Do you do that?
So I'm trying not to be that guy.
I was going to say.
I used to be.
Pretty sure.
I used to be, and I was reminded often enough that that's a thing that I think I have broken that habit.
Hey.
Yeah.
Habits can be, it's not necessarily a bad one, but habits can be broken.
It's an annoying one for everybody else. Didn't bother me at all, but, I realize it bothered other people. But I do appreciate Eugene Park, who wrote this article for the Gospel Coalition, saying, like, there is potentially that subtle message of in that individual chair, you have your individual space. And now, because we do attend a church where we sit in pews, I do find that, like, my kids will scoot in tighter and scoot in closer. But then I also can have more space between our family unit and somebody else who is much further down the pew. And so the introvert in me kind of doesn't mind that sometimes too.
And I think that's where people will push back on this whole idea that Eugene has, is because we have become such an individualistic society where it's about us. We want our preferences. And that's what he's just reminding us of, that corporate worship is not a time for individualism. And that really, really does challenge our thinking, because we all have kind of bought into this, whether we realize it or not. And that's a blanket statement, like we all. I think it probably depends on your generation and your church experience. But by and large, I think a lot of us, even if we've grown up in the church, if we have morphed into culture, we've morphed into this, it's too peoply out there. I need my space. I'm an introvert. I've had such a busy week. Just let me be. And what happens is we completely miss why we're there, who we're there for, and the fact that he created the body to collectively lift up his name. That's pretty sobering if you want to stop and distill it down to why we're there.
I think that is a really good reminder. We have so often, whether we've intended to or not, I think sent the message that this is potentially a consumer model experience. You can come, pick your seat, grab your coffee on the way in. It can be largely all about you, when we have been told numerous times in Scripture that we are a part of the body of Christ, and every person has a part to play. And there's something about corporate worship that I think is strength building, faith building. And if we deprive ourselves of that, I think we're doing ourselves a disservice in doing that. But I know it can be awkward and uncomfortable. Yesterday, after our church service, we had a church-wide picnic.
Oh, wow.
And there were a lot of people there, and only so many picnic tables out there. And so there was a lot of even much more so than in the pews. There was a lot of people getting all scrunched together, nice and tight, to be able to find a place to eat their hamburger or hot dog. And, it reminded me a little bit of what, Eugene Park's writing about here. Like, we are a part of a body. This is a community of believers. And if we have too much open space, I think it can be too easy to not make connections. There's something about
So
pews,
easy.
something about the getting everybody in a more tightly packed thing where we just naturally, I think, make more and better connections.
I think, too, that the fact it challenges our thinking when we're like, well, no, I like my individual chair. And if I don't like the music there, I'm going to go over here. And if I don't like the preaching over here, I'm going to go back over there. Like, just making it more of an individualistic thing. The fact that we chafe under that we're talking about that, the possibility is that we go, well, I mean, that's the way I like it. That is a good and human response. And I don't mean good in that, like, yay. I mean, that's a very natural response for us to come up with.
Yeah.
It also then may expose a little bit of our thinking and our heart posture when it comes to what worship is all about. And as I read that article, I was thinking a lot about corporate worship and some of the points that he pulled out. And that is, and there's another article, the Gospel Coalition. I think, did Joe Carter write one about being late to church?
Yes, he did.
And it dovetails so beautifully into what Eugene Parks wrote in thinking about what time we walk into the church building and why. Like, it's not that you had a flat tire. It's not that the kids were unruly this morning and it was just one of those mornings. It's something that happens routinely. And we're like, well, it doesn't matter. I mean, the first couple songs, again, if we look at what worship is designed for, and we say it doesn't matter until it matters to me,
Right.
then we might need to ask the Lord, not Don Ramey, not Steve Hiller, but we might need to ask the Lord, well, what is my heart posture toward worship?
I think that is a very good question. And with that, if we are a part of the body, right, should the body not care for each other? Should one member not care for all the other members? And if someone is habitually coming in late, they're potentially being a distraction. Habitually coming in late, it's, okay, this is not a priority to me. I think we're sending a message that we may not intend to send or be aware that we're sending,
Right.
but I think we are.
Yes.
In doing that. If I can't be here on time, then this is not important. B, I don't care if I'm a distraction. And so if we don't want to be those things, I think trying to make it our habit and our pattern of being there early, at least on time, would be a good thing. And I know that's a challenge for a lot of families, a lot of people.
It is.
But man, I think having that mindset of, well, I don't want to send a message I don't intend to send, it might help in kind of changing my thinking a little bit.
Joe had a great example about like a big philharmonic, and if the woodwinds are all tuned and it's time to start rehearsal, and so the master conductor picks up his baton, starts the woodwind section, and then here comes the brass. They're late. They're coming in and they're trying to get situated while he's already conducting, and then the percussion, they come in and they start, waving over to the strings, and like nobody would do that if they were in a huge orchestra like that.
Right.
Nobody would, because you respect one another and you want to be there so that you can give the best that you can and the product that you're going to produce for your audience. Our audience is the King
Right.
of Kings. And that's where you just immediately go, oh, Lord, how have I been treating corporate worship? Is it not important enough to me to be early to get in my spot? Because if you're walking, and this is the other thing that got me, Steve, is let's just say, the row is full and there's one spot for you in the middle, and it's second song in. You've got people worshiping or trying to get focused on the one that we're worshiping, on the Lord, and you, excuse me, pardon me, to get to your seat. Now, granted, this is not a legalistic thing, but it's just something to check our heart posture. we are, if that's me, I'm interrupting every single person
Right.
and where they are trying to worship the Lord. And you, I mean, I don't know about you, but I can get distracted by just about anything.
Really? You can do that? Never would have guessed.
So if somebody's walking in front of me and I know that person, I'm going to be like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
it's going to be a minute before I can get my focus back together.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that it's something that we need to probably ask the Lord, what is my heart posture toward this whole thing? If it's about you and not me.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, how many of us, in a sense, live and die by the calendar in our appointments in certain aspects of our life? You know, if you have an appointment with the CEO of the company, you are probably going to be there early, if not on time.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make sure that that is a priority to show up on time, head in the game, prepared for what is
Right.
about to happen, because you are going to have a meeting with the CEO.
Yeah.
And, God is so much greater
so
than
much.
that. And how many times do we come in late, head not in the game, potentially, like you said, being a distraction to those around us? Like if we recognize who we are meeting with when we show up for corporate worship, that could change a whole lot of things. And I don't know. I think this is a conversation that we needed to have, because maybe sometimes I need to hear these things.
Well, and again, I want to go back to Eugene nor Joe want to come at this from a legalistic point of
Right.
view, but
Right.
from a heart posture of the one that we worship. And I think that point has to be driven home, because we will naturally still pull it out and go, well, that's just being, you're just following the rules. Let's think about what Jesus has done for us. He is the one that through all things were created. Through him, all things were created. For him, all things were created. And he gave his life to pay the penalty for our sin, which we could never do.
Right.
This is who he is. This is who we come to worship. So it's a love relationship. It's not a legalistic relationship.
Yeah.
If your CEO calls you in and has good news for you, you're going to be all about that. Like you said, you're going to show up on time. If the one who redeemed you says, this is a time to get together with all kinds of believers and lift up my name out of love and thanksgiving, I would think that we'd want to be on time
Sure.
for that designated worship space.
On time, head in the game too, because I think one of the things we can walk into, even if we are on time, corporate worship, is almost viewing the first couple of songs as the warm-up act,
Yep.
or this is the thing that is going to get my head in the game, get my heart posture right. And that's true.
Sure.
That might be a part of what is happening there. But if we wait until that point in time, if we walk in to corporate worship with thinking about all the appointments we have that week, the fight that we had with our spouse, the way the kids are driving us crazy, whatever those things are, if we're walking in and expecting that, I'm just going to use those songs to prepare my heart. Okay, I get that. I've been there.
Sure.
But it's so much better when I walk
It's
in
true.
with I am here, like you just said. Song number one, head already in the game, heart there, ready to worship. I think we will find that it changes our idea and view of what corporate worship is, and the value and priority that we place on it.
All of that and the expectancy of meeting with the Lord.
Yeah.
I just cannot tell you these last several weeks, that music to prepare. Yeah. I mean, it does continue the preparation to hear the word. There's just something that the Lord does in speaking to my heart through that. And usually I'm going in still on the same note that we've been talking about all week. And that is, okay, Lord, I'm following you. I want to follow you. Where are you leading? And those songs and the word just affirm again, over and over, I am who I say I am. You can trust me. My word will not return void. You stay in my presence because I stay with you. I've given you my Holy Spirit. That makes it so much easier to worship him because of what he extends to us, the grace, the forgiveness, the comfort. Because, I mean, some of those mornings maybe because I don't feel good. Or somebody's coming into worship and they're not feeling well. But the God of all comfort is there as well. So it's just a heart posture thing, one that we don't probably talk about enough, not from a legalism standpoint, but from a love standpoint.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for the Dawn and Steve Plus podcast. We're a listener-supported, non-profit podcast, and we're grateful for your generous support. You can give at dawnandsteveplus.com. Our producer is yours truly, Stephen Briggs, with assistance from Chris Westmoreland. Please like and subscribe to Dawn and Steve Plus anywhere you get your podcasts and on all our socials. Links to what we talk about and to Raphael's Roastery are in the show notes below. Thanks for joining us and being our plus one.